Howdy folks, the weekend is upon us. I do hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today we're featuring a replay from Atom. You may have heard of him. He's an Austrian World of Warships live streamer. If I remember, and I'm not particularly crap, I'll put a link to his Twitch channel down below in the video description. Come to think of it, he also does a podcast with Pointy Head Jedi. I'll stick a link to his YouTube channel in the video description as well. And today he's going to be taking the German Tier 10, do we call it a battleship or a battle cruiser? We'll call it a battleship. It's in the matchmaking as a battleship. The Schlieffen. So, the Schlieffen is one of the newer ships in the game, although at this point it has been around for a while. And it is a very, very good ship. Although it's not without some significant weaknesses. Well, really one significant weakness, but we'll come to that in a moment. First, let's talk about what's good about the Schlieffen. This may take some time because there's a lot that's good about the Schlieffen. Named after the First World War German Field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen, who came up with the plan that bears his name, the Schlieffen Plan. This was a pre-war plan, and when I say pre-war I mean First World War plan, to achieve a quick and decisive knockout victory against France in 1914 by avoiding the Maginot Line and going around through the Netherlands and Belgium instead. Needless to say, the plan didn't quite work as anticipated, for all kinds of different reasons, and instead of a quick and decisive victory in 1914, we ended up with 4 years of attritional trench warfare instead. Post-war German historians managed to lay the blame for the failure of the Schlieffen Plan squarely on the shoulders of Schlieffen's successor as the German Chief of Staff in 1906, Field Marshal Helmut von Moltke, although this was pretty unfair. It wasn't strictly Moltke's fault, but after the First Battle of the Marne, he got sacked and blamed for the failure, when the plan was never really meant to be used as a strict blueprint. Prussian military training had always emphasized flexibility and encouraged German army officers to adapt their tactics on the fly to fit evolving changes in circumstances on the battlefield, rather than sticking rigidly to a preset plan. And of course, when Moltke did this in the First Battle of the Marne in September 1914 and the Germans lost, post-war historians were all, "Oh, there, him. Moltke's to blame, he deviated from the plan," when basically he was just a convenient scapegoat. Basically, post-First World War German historians did what everybody does in World of Warships when they lose a battle. Blame the team, rather than giving any credit to the enemy for being any good. But anyway, Schlieffen, and the ship that bears his name. This is a very, very good ship, although it does have one glaring vulnerability. We'll come on to the vulnerability in a moment. Actually, no, because he's experiencing the ship's vulnerability right now, and it's the poor armour. Well, two vulnerabilities actually. Poor armour, and the fact that this is a Tier 10 battleship that only has 76,000 hit points. The poor armour, however, is probably the bigger problem, because you can see how much health he's losing, and most of that is thanks to the destroyer, the Forrest Sherman, that's hidden inside that smokescreen over there. This ship eats a lot of damage from high explosive shells in particular, but that also makes her vulnerable to semi-armour piercing shells, which means that she takes huge amounts of damage from HE and SAP, even when angled, and if not angled, some well-placed high-caliber armour piercing will end your naval career very, very quickly indeed. In fact, you can die in this ship even if angled, because the commonly accepted wisdom is that Tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships have 32mm of bow and stern plating, which means they can go nose in and bow tank against anything that isn't, for example, the Musashi or the Yamato, with greater than 18-inch guns, although these days that also includes ships like the Incomparable and the Shikishima, so, the list is getting slightly longer. But these German battle cruisers, ships like the Zieten, the Prinz Ruprecht and the Schlieffen, have 27mm of bow and stern plating. And 27mm of bow and stern plating means that you cannot go nose in and bow tank against anything armed with 16-inch guns, because they will slice right through your bow and stern armour without performing a ricochet check either. And the list of battleships that you're going to face at Tier 10 that do not have 16-inch guns is a very, very short list indeed. You've got the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, I suppose, at tier 8 that you could end up fighting. They have 15-inch guns. You can ricochet 15-inch armor piercing off your bows. There's the very unfortunate Marlborough, I suppose, at tier 9, which is only on with 14-inch guns. And there are maybe one or two more, but it's a very, very short list. Basically, almost everything that you're going to face is going to be able to punch through your nose plating or your stern plating like a hot knife through butter. Well, battleships, that is. Certainly not the cruisers, and not the destroyers. But the cruisers and the destroyers, for the most part, are going to have high explosive shells. And your deck and superstructure is very thin as well, and eats a lot of high explosive and also semi-armor piercing damage. So you cannot really afford to be too aggressive in this ship, because it just eats so much damage. Or at least that's the commonly accepted wisdom. ATOM here don't have time for none of that shit. He's got a battle to win. ATOM chooses violence, and the Schlieffen is very capable of dishing the damage out, even if it's not very good at taking it. Here we go. I suppose I should remark on the secondaries first, because that's the part... I mean, it's like the Massachusetts. The Massachusetts is a decent ship on with decent 16-inch main battery guns, but nobody cares about the main battery guns on the Massachusetts. It's the secondaries, because secondaries are fun. And on certain ships, they're also very, very effective. The Harlem over there is about to have a very bad day. If ATOM's secondaries don't get him, and they did, the Elbing would have. There is a Forrest Sherman inside that smokescreen. You can see the smokescreen extending over to the left, which probably means the Forrest Sherman, yep, he is trying to make a run for it. He just popped up. The secondaries shoot, but then he manages to go undetected. But ATOM, realizing that he is actually in range of his Hydro, triggers the Hydro. German Hydro has very long range. Focuses the Forrest Sherman with the secondaries at the same time as he gets a secondary kill on the North Carolina. And the Forrest Sherman is not going to be able to get away. It's not that that guy is just sitting there. He's not fast enough to escape being detected by the Schlieffen's Hydro, because the Schlieffen is a very fast battleship. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the fastest tier 10 battleship. Oh, he's got the Sherman. Of course he has. Hang on a minute, Jingles. I've seen other battleships going faster than this. Well, yeah, but we're talking about base speeds here. The Sherman's base speed, and remember it's a destroyer, is nearly 34 knots. And the Schlieffen's base speed is a little bit more than 34 knots. Yeah, there are other fast battleships around, but it's faster than the Republique, the French tier 10. It's certainly faster than the Conqueror, the British tier 10. What about the Georgia? I've seen Georgias doing nearly 40 knots. Well, sure, but the Georgia's not tier 10, it's tier 9, and its base speed is slower than the Schlieffen. It can only manage those speeds with the aid of an engine boost. So yeah, there are other battleships around at tier 9 and 10 that are faster than the Schlieffen, but they only achieve those speeds by using consumables. The Schlieffen is just that fast. Of course, the downside to having all of this speed in combination with really shitty armour and the lowest health pool of any tier 10 battleship is that it's really easy to get yourself into trouble really fast. And to be honest, I'm not really sure ATOM cares. But as he's chasing down that North Carolina and the Alsace, and he does have less than 20,000 health, although he's using a heal, the remainder of the enemy team are being herded towards him from the northeast by the rest of ATOM's team. So he's not just fighting the North Carolina and the Alsace, he's very soon going to be, well, fighting the whole remainder of the enemy team. And I do mean very soon, as he takes out North Carolina with another close quarters. The secondaries on this thing are spicy as hell. And did we mention it also has torpedoes? I mean, there are other German battleships that have torpedoes. Gneisenau, Tirpitz. You could argue, even though it's a cruiser, that the Graf Spee is really a battleship. Certainly the British in World War II called it a pocket battleship, and that also has some very good torpedoes. But most German capital ships that are armed with torpedoes have those standard 6-kilometer range ones. The Schlieffen does not. The Schlieffen's torpedoes have a range of 13.5 kilometers, although they are horribly, horribly slow. with a speed of only 50 knots, which means in practice you tend to use them at the same kind of 6-kilometer range that other German torpedo-armed capital ships would use their torpedoes. But it's nice to have that extra option if you need it. And I think Atom may have bitten off more than he can chew here. Yeah, he's going for the mines, which is probably the smart thing to do, because it's a cruiser and his 420mm guns can deal with it more effectively. He's also focusing the secondaries on it, and also I'm pretty sure that thing has torpedoes. So yeah, that's some smart target prioritization. I'm pretty sure he's about to get the Kraken unleashed here. And he shouldn't be in any danger from the mines' torpedoes, because they only have a 6-kilometer range, unless of course the mines launched a Hail Mary and he steams on a further 2 kilometers and sails into it. But he just lost a chunk of health there, and he's out of heals with 3 battleships bearing down on him. 3 very low health battleships though. And just look at the damage ticket over from the secondaries there. He's got the North Carolina. The Bourgogne is too far away to get involved. He's all the way up by the cap circle in Charlie. That just leaves the Alsace. Probably very pissed off Alsace, because Atom's been chasing him around the entire map while eliminating his teammates one by one. Oh, but remember what we said about large caliber armor piercing? Yeah, that was fairly inevitable. But the Alsace is not going to live to enjoy his short-lived victory. In fact, the enemy team as a whole are done here. They've basically been on the back foot this entire battle. Although they did rally briefly, they managed to sink 4 enemy ships, including Atom, in the last 2 minutes. But I'd be surprised if they get any more. You know, unless somebody does something incredibly stupid, which, let's face it, is not completely out of the question. Like slowing to a stop in a smokescreen, just in time to catch a whole bunch of Shimakaze torpedoes. Okay, that wasn't so much stupid as just incredibly bad timing. Come on, guys, stop playing with your food. Finally, somebody finishes off the Alsace. That just leaves the Bourgogne, and we know there's a Shimakaze over there somewhere. His torpedoes have been spotted, of course, by the friendly Shimakaze, spotting them with his face. So the Cleveland is able to avoid becoming the next victim. Actually, you know what, we should probably give some credit to the Cleveland and the Attigo, because they're both tier 8 cruisers and they're both still alive at the end of a tier 10 battle. There goes the Bourgogne. The Cleveland's using his radar. That's really bad news for the Shimakaze. Last ship alive, caught within Cleveland radar range with only 52 health left. Yeah, that's it. So that's a very cheeky 6 kills there for Atom in the German tier 10 battleship / battle cruiser, the Schlieffen, and nearly 300,000 damage done. And I've just noticed all 6 of those kills were from the secondaries. That's 6 close quarters expert awards. And nearly 2,000 base experience, but I'm sure you all want to know just exactly how much of that nearly 300,000 damage was done with the secondaries alone. Make sure you're all sitting down and strapped in for this one, because it's a really big number. Here it comes. 177,000. With another 44,000 from the fires set by the secondaries. So, in a ship armed with 8 420mm guns, with which he did score 43 hits, but they only did 71,000 damage, more than 2/3 of his total damage done was caused directly by his 105, his poxy little 105mm and 150mm guns. That's just disgusting. But in a way that amuses me. So yeah, Atom, congratulations, and thank you for sending that one in. I hope everybody else had fun watching it, because that's it for today. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.